Hey, it's Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to be trying out a fun technique which is kind of like double stamping. So you're stamping the same image on two different pieces here. Now, just to start off completely, I am starting here with some VersaFine clear ink. This is a pigment ink. But first of all, I will just say that if you have a piece of coloured cardstock, then start with that by all means. I keep very little coloured cardstock on hand just because I don't have a whole lot of room for storage, and I tend to just make my own coloured cardstock when I need it, so that's exactly what I'm doing here. But if you have the coloured cardstock, then by all means go ahead and use that first. Now, I did start off by ink blending here, and I'm using a domed foam blending tool, which means I get a really nice blend, but then you'll see I just kind of want it really nice and dark, so I take the ink pad straight to the paper. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure this uses a lot more ink and things, so it's good to have a re-inker on hand. There are re-inkers available for all of these VersaFine clear inks, so that's okay too. But as I said, if you have coloured cardstock, that will work fine as well. Now, because we put such a thick layer of ink on here, pigment ink takes a while to dry because it sits on top of the paper. So I did need to dry these for a good amount of time. Now, that doesn't bother me at all. And again, you can skip this step totally by using your own already coloured cardstock. So I'm giving these a really good dry. And then you'll see when I use my anti-static powder bag, I'm going to use lots of it, and that's just so that I don't run into any problems when I come to do this embossing. It's just much easier to add plenty and then it all wipes away later on. Now, here is the BoBunny Wildflowers stamp set. I've used this one a lot, and I did cut apart this large stamp that's right down the middle. I really love all of the separate elements to it, but I didn't love it all together, so I'm definitely cutting it up. And I cut it up in a previous video actually, and I just kind of pop it back down. Now here I am using a stamping tool for this, and this is the mini MISTI, but I'm actually going to swap in a little bit as well, just because I needed a bit more space. Now at the moment the blue sheet is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. Both I have a plain white sheet of paper, which is this one here, and the blue sheet. So on the blue sheet, I'm using the VersaMark sticky embossing ink, and then without moving the stamps at all, I'm going to put the white sheet of paper in and stamp it in the Belle VersaFine clear ink. So then once I have kind of stamped both of them, I am going to take the blue piece and add some white embossing powder to this. And as I said, it looks a little bit messy at the moment because you can see there is so much powder from the anti-static powder bag. However, it just makes it so much easier adding plenty of the powder bag and things, so that, as I said, I don't want to run into problems where I have too much embossing powder sticking to my project. So here I just need to shift to a bigger stamping tool. This one is from Lincraft. If you live in Australia or New Zealand, this is available, and I love this stamping tool. In fact, it might be the favorite of all of them that I own. It comes with those little magnets there, and they have the little covers on. That's what comes with it, but you can buy them separately as well. I get so many questions about this. Now I'm going to take those same two stamps, the one of the flower and the one of the leaf, and I'm going to reposition them again. And here again, I am just going to make sure that I have got my paper in exactly the same spot, stamping it in the blue Belle ink, and then I'm going to take out the white piece and put in the blue piece without shifting the stamps, because I want everything to be in exactly the same spot so that we can make the image nice and continuous later on. So as I said, adding plenty of my anti-static powder bag, and then the VersaMark ink, which I will stamp down and then just do the same process over and over again. Now I am being a little bit careful here because I do want to leave a space for a sentiment. And when I end up layering these up, you can either put the blue one at the back or the white one at the back. It doesn't matter which way around you do it. So just whichever works for you is fine. But my point is that when I am shifting these flower stamps around, I'm making sure I'm going to leave room for a sentiment so that I can just include that on rather than having to add an extra piece of paper or an extra sentiment strip later on. But again, you can do that as well. So placing the flowers for kind of the last time, and sometimes you'll need to kind of have more flowers or less flowers, and that's okay, it doesn't bother me. This was a really fun technique to try out, and I really love the look that it is so continuous and kind of flawlessly looks the same, and people kind of figure out how you did that. If you end up giving this technique a go, or you were inspired by this video, I would really love to see your cards that you create. And the best place to do that is to pop on over to my Facebook page. We have an amazing supportive group of people. We are so lucky. It's actually amazing. And I will leave a link to that down in the description box below this video, as well as any links to any products that are still available, like the inks and the papers and the sentiment and the stamps and things. I will link anything that's still there, so that's where you can find that. And then just here when I'm finishing this last one, I am going to kind of mask it off just using a scrap piece of paper, because I didn't need the whole image. I just want that one little flower, and I didn't want to cut my stamp for this, so I am just going to ink it up and just get that one little image. And then I will need to do, of course, the same thing when I am stamping the blue ink, but this is the last little flower that I am going to do, and then the last little gap there will be used for the sentiment. Now, this is definitely one of those cards that you can change up the occasion and could be used for so many different occasions. You can change up the colors. You could, as I said, if you have some pre-made cardstock, that does make life a whole lot easier. But yeah, heaps and heaps of different ways that you could go about this, and some are slightly easier and some are a little bit trickier, but this one was fun today. And I do really enjoy kind of trying new techniques that aren't too challenging for me, that are within my capabilities. So yeah, now I am going to add the sentiment here. Use anything that you have at all, but you guys have seen this stamp set so many times before from the Lily collection, and it's got all of the kind of sentiment range covered. So there's all of the feel better soons, with love, I miss you, thinking of you, happy birthday, with sympathy, everything. And it just so happened that I needed a sympathy card, so that's what I'm using this one for. Again, I feel like this kind of lends itself to all those different occasions. It could be a sympathy card, or it could be a happy birthday card, just depending on the colors or anything that you wanted to use. So now, just to keep this nice and simple, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So I'm not going to add any different colors or anything at this point. So just the same white embossing powder. And I always go for a super fine embossing powder, because that way you have the ability to kind of do sentiments and fine detail, but you are also able to do anything that is a little more solid as well. Now, we've wiped away all of that anti-static powder, and you can see that it is completely gone and leaves a really nice clean image. And here are the two of them side by side, so they should be identical. And I also felt like with the white one, I'm just going to add in an extra stamp, because this is going to be the layer that goes behind. So this bit doesn't match up exactly, but you'll see later on when I put it all together why this kind of doesn't really matter at all. But it's just filling in the gap for now and kind of pleasing to the eye. So I just use an acrylic block because it's nice and easy for me. And again, if I am adding in layers, matting layers, this is one of my favorite tricks without having to add in an actual different layer of cardstock, is I just use a piece of low tack tape. This is the mint tape from scrapbook.com, and I searched high and low for a long time. I tried out a lot of low tack tapes, and this one was by far the best one for me. So this is definitely the one that I recommend. I have not torn any of my projects yet, which can be the most frustrating thing when you end up tearing a project, especially once you are halfway through it or you've put some effort into it. So I am just reusing the same piece and the same ink. I'm keeping everything nice and coordinated, not introducing any new colors at all, and then it leaves a beautiful blue border around the outside without having to add any extra cardstock. I have the Hero Arts Infinity die set here. These are the rectangles, but any rectangle dies or any shape that you want to do would work really well here. But I'm going to keep it simple with a rectangle. And you'll see in a minute there's a reason why I don't want to just cut it out with a paper trimmer, but that would work as well if you want to do that. I am getting it all set in place, and then again using some of that low tack tape so that it doesn't shift as I put it through my die cutting machine. I want to get exactly the right spot. Run it through my die cutting machine and cut out the rectangle, and then I am just about ready to start putting my card together. So I know that feels like a whole lot of waste there that we have just kind of cut off, but hold on because I'll be using that too. So here I have all of the bits ready to pop together, and I am popping this down onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch 110 pound Nina Solar White card base. And again, because we added that little border, and I actually did cut this down at some point to be just ever so slightly smaller, so it's got that nice white border and then the dark blue border before the white panel. And then on top of this, all I'm going to do, I did decide to add a little bit of fun foam. This is just like kids fun foam. I think this is the 2mm one. And I add a little bit of liquid glue on both sides, and then I'm going to pop it down exactly in place. Now, of course, you can put it anywhere on your panel. I just kind of like the look of it a little bit over to the side. It's just something a little bit different than being square on right in the center. And that is the front of the card, and it is completely seamless, so that's such a fun technique. However, in the middle here you can see I have that nice big strip there left over, and I don't want to waste it because we put so much time and effort into creating this. And just to finish off the inside of the card, I am going to pop that down the right hand side. And again, I don't often kind of decorate the insides of the cards. I'm not usually a really big fan of that, but I definitely didn't want to waste this piece, and I felt like it continued onto the inside of the card really, really nicely. So I'm using a little bit of liquid glue. Of course, I don't want any dimension inside the card. And then that is our finished card for today. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is actually a really simple technique. It's just a matter of keeping the stamping identical on the front and the back, and it's really cool in real life because even though it's got a little bit of dimension in between the blue and the white, the images just carry on so seamlessly. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!